Good evening, everybody. Hope you're enjoying a beautiful Tuesday. 11 degrees in February. Does it get any better than this? I don't know, because I've been happy all day seeing the sun, seeing the snow go away. That's all I really need to get this type of feeling. But we have a lot to get into tonight around the world of sports. We're going to be talking some baseball, some veterans signing with some teams. Still, a lot of free agents remain unsigned. Cody Bellinger off the market, which we talked about on Sunday. But Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery, JD Martinez still waiting for work. We're going to dive into the NBA. The West is fascinating. To me, there's still a team that's above the rest. They would scare me. They have the best player in the NBA. I think they have the leading front runner for the MVP. So we're going to get into that and just kind of where the East stands as well, because there's a team at the top with a huge lead that's going to win the East, and a bunch of teams trying to figure out where they fit into the puzzle. We're going to talk NHL. I have some thoughts on Nikita Kucherov and him being, to me, disrespected by the mainstream media, and I'm not going to stand for it. And we're going to talk about it because he's been, if not the best player right there this season, from wire to wire. Not, I'm going to take a spurt off. And so I want to talk about that. Look at some of the games this evening, and then the Patrick Kane homecoming, which was a lot of fun on Sunday night. But let's start with football. NFL Combine is this weekend in Indianapolis. There are rumors floating around. First off, Peter King retired. If you're not familiar with Peter King basically trying to find the right connection. He was the voice of the NFL for a long time. He had a column in NBC, Sports Illustrated, called Football Morning in America. Came out every Monday. Huge piece, dived into a lot of stuff, and it was a fantastic read. He's been a great reporter for a long time, 66 years old, and he decides to retire. So congratulations to Peter. I'll miss reading his column, and I'll miss seeing him just being interviewed and talking about the game of football, because you could tell he really loved it. But on his way out, Peter King said, I don't know anything, because I'm just talking what I've heard from people, that there's a chance that the Bears will not trade Justin Fields, will stand firm, and move on. Will either keep the first overall pick and draft a player they like, or trade down like they did last year with Carolina, recoup a whole bunch of stuff, and try to improve their team going into next season. I always thought it was strange for the Bears not to fire Matt Eberflus if they were going to take Caleb Williams with the number 1 overall pick. And the reason I say that is Matt Eberflus was on the job for 2 years. He's below 500 as a head coach. Didn't make the playoffs in his 2 years. And if you're going to move off Justin Fields, you'd think you'd restart the clock with a new head coach, bring in a new offensive coordinator, which the Bears did in Shane Waldron, but that was a job that really wasn't that coveted, because I think there's a lot of worry with it. If the season doesn't go well, you could be out on your ass after 1 year. So it was surprising to me that you're going to take the number 1 overall pick and keep the same head coach that hasn't had success and just move in that direction. Now, they may ultimately decide to keep Justin Fields, who knows Matt Eberflus. He's been his coach for 2 years. Try Justin Fields with Shane Waldron, who's been an OC with the Seattle Seahawks the last 3 years. They've had good success down there with Geno Smith and, really making something out of nothing after Geno having his career, rejuvenated after his departure from the New York Giants. But Peter King saying this means something to me. He's not a guy that speculates. He's not in the hot take business. He's a journalist through and through. He reports facts. He doesn't he wants to be right. When he puts something out, he's putting his name on it, and that means something. To a lot of people today, it doesn't. It's not a big deal. Oh, I got this wrong, or I pontificated about this. I come from that vantage point where on this program, when I get something wrong, I acknowledge it. I bring it up. If I have a take that goes poorly, like the New York Rangers are going to miss the playoffs, I'll shove it in my face 100 times because I think you should remember when you're right and when you're wrong in life, and reflect on what it means to have that feeling for both. Because if you only reflect on your wins, if you only reflect on the things you do well, then you're never really getting any better as a person. You're just looking at it going, oh, I was never wrong, and you just walk away through every situation thinking that you can improve and you are where you are. But the fact that Peter King is saying this, Justin Fields, could he remain a Chicago Bear? It seems crazy to me. Last year, the Bears said no thanks to the quarterback crop. Bryce Young goes to the Panthers. CJ Stroud, who the Bears would love to have, goes to Houston, pick number 3, offensive rookie of the year, wins a playoff game, and looks like the future of the position. The kid's a stud. So you could argue the Bears missed, but I don't think many teams were taking CJ Stroud with the first pick. It was going to be Bryce Young. And I think Justin Fields is better than Bryce Young. We think you're going to go through another draft class where you have the first overall pick, back-to-back years with the first overall pick, and you don't take a quarterback. You don't take the phenom that people are comparing to Patrick Mahomes, the best player to ever play the sport. Caleb Williams, USC, Oklahoma, Lincoln Riley, incredible numbers, uber competitor. Doesn't go well this year because they have Alex Grinch as the defensive coordinator, and he finally gets fired, and they lose multiple games, and he didn't play well in the game at Notre Dame. But throughout his college career, he was the best player in college football, and most teams look at him and go, we're taking him with the first overall pick. I believe the Bears are going to do that for a couple reasons. This might sound like a weird phrasing, but they have to. They have to take Caleb Williams because they didn't take a quarterback last year. Fans have seen Justin Fields play with this very roster. With Darnell Mooney and DJ Moore and Khalil Herbert. We know the ceiling. We know what he can do. Caleb Williams, we've never seen on an NFL field, but we've seen him in college, and we know he's really good. So you need to change it up just for the sake of changing it. And also, you take him with the first overall pick. The Bears have their own pick, which is also inside the top 10. And if you trade Justin Fields, maybe you get a late first rounder, early second rounder at the worst. Because the Steelers should want Justin Fields. The Atlanta Falcons should want Justin Fields. There will be people looking for his services because there are so many bad quarterbacks around the league. But it is decision time for the Chicago Bears, because if you screw up this selection, it will cost you your job. Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus going into year 3. Need to make a call. Need to move forward, and it needs to be the correct one. Because if it is not the correct one, you are fired. Your organization missed out on 2 seasons to get quarterbacks to turn it around. The Bears have been a laughingstock for a very long time. But things can change. A team being pathetic doesn't mean you have to be pathetic for the longest. So you think of the Maple Leafs. They haven't won yet, but they're not pathetic anymore. They were. for about 20 years. A pathetic team. The Chicago Cubs, a team inside the city, did not win a World Series for 108 years. The best thing that you could say about the Cubs was Steve Bartman. That's all people knew them for. Bartman reaching over on that play, losing to the Florida Marlins in the 2003 World Series. Generations of people lived and died without seeing the Chicago Cubs winning a championship. But that franchise won. The Red Sox curse ended. Thanks, Theo Epstein. Let's rehire you. See if you can do it again. These things can change. The Bears got to the Super Bowl in 2006. And they lost to an Indianapolis Colts team that wasn't that good. Were they a perfect team? No, but they lost. Since then, they've had mistake after mistake, trading up to get Mitch Trubisky when you could have taken Patrick Mahomes or Mr. Asshole himself, Deshaun Watson. Could have had either one of them. Deshaun was a better college quarterback than Patrick. Deshaun getting to a national championship, then winning a national championship in back-to-back years at Clemson. So this is nut-cutting time for the Bears. March 9th, 2023, they traded the first overall pick to the Carolina Panthers. Carolina was then on the clock. I expect if there's going to be a move, if Justin Fields or if that number one overall pick is going to be traded, it's going to be in the next couple weeks. Because free agency is March 15th, which will be 2 weeks Saturday. Meaning, teams have to make decisions. And I'm sure going into free agency, if you're the Steelers or you're the Falcons or one of these teams kind of in the middle, you'll want your quarterbacks when you go spend money, you know who's going to be throwing the ball to them. Trying to figure out how much money you're going to spend in free agency. Do we take a run at Kirk D. Cousins? Do we trade with Sam Howell from the Washington Commanders because they got the second overall pick and they're likely going to take a guy? Do we look at trading for Mac Jones with the Patriots because they have pick number 3? All of these decisions come in unison, but you have to make your decision based on all the knowledge. And Justin Fields would help teams. I think he is a good quarterback. Still has a lot to prove, would have a chip on his shoulder. Atlanta or Pittsburgh, I think, are both good destinations for Justin Fields. Quite frankly, I think playing on both of those offenses would be better than playing on the Chicago Bears next year. And the Bears aren't terrible. DJ Moore's a stud. But you're thinking in Pittsburgh. Pickens, Deontay Johnson, the great tight end, Najee Harris, Jalen Warren. I think they should draft another piece. Darnell Washington from Georgia. You got weapons. You go to Atlanta. Bijan Robinson, who's saying he wants to run for 2,000 yards next year. Not gonna, but it's nice sentiment to say. Kyle Pitts, Drake London. They got players. They got impact guys. And teams that have to win, that have to prove something. The Falcons in a very winnable NFC South, because the NFC South is always a winnable division. So all these decisions are interesting. The biggest choice is for the Bears, obviously. A team that made a decision that surprised me. Cincinnati Bengals were kind of out of sight, out of mind this year. Prior to kickoff on the season, they were my pick to win the Super Bowl. Joe Burrow got injured so often, missed the back half of the season. They missed guys throughout. Boyd missed some games. T. Higgins, their number 2 receiver behind Jamar Chase, missed some games. And T. Higgins is a free agent. Very interesting receiver, great body type, a perfect number 2 to Jamar, and he's been incredibly productive with the Bengals. Well, Cincinnati decided to franchise tag him yesterday, meaning he will not be an outright free agent. He will not be able to talk to other teams unless a team decides to give him an offer sheet that the Bengals cannot match. But he'll be making close to $20 million this season on a 1-year deal. But if they can come to a long-term contract agreement prior to July, then they re-sign him. You have Burrow, Chase, Higgins, and you move on. You keep going, and you try to get back to where you once were, which was a Super Bowl not too long ago. Tyler Boyd, he's a free agent. I don't see him coming back with this move because they're just not going to have the money to keep the triplets together. Cincinnati, the Bengals have been a cheap organization for a long time. They don't like to spend money. Yes, they are a small market. But to me, keeping T. Higgins, putting faith in Zach Taylor after missing the playoffs, they're trying to win. They know what they have in Joe Burrow, which is one of the best quarterbacks in the world when healthy. You signed Orlando Brown Jr. last offseason. He left the Chiefs to go to Cincinnati. A pretty damn good left tackle. I understand keeping a great player. That's not my confusion. I'm just looking at going, that's money that's not going to be able to go to other resources. Because when you see a team win, you kind of look at around at the situation and go, our team's going to copycat that team. Kansas City had one great weapon, and that's a 35-year-old Travis Kelce. MVS came up big when he had to. Mecole Hardman caught a touchdown in the Super Bowl. Rashee Rice was a very good receiver throughout the year, got better as the year went on. But they didn't have any big names. They didn't have anybody that jumped off the page. And yet, here we are. I thought our team's going to look at receivers and go, if we get a great quarterback, we have a great scheme, better coaching, maybe we don't have to break the bank for wide receivers. For a running back, Pacheco being a second-year guy who doesn't make any money. Cincinnati's going in the opposite direction. They want to keep their weapons, try to improve the offensive line, keep the quarterback healthy. Their defense lost a lot of pieces last offseason. Lou Anarumo, still the DC, will have to see what he can do to keep it together moving forward. If it was me, I would have spent the money on other pieces, on improving, getting a better defense, getting a better offensive line. There are great wide receivers in this draft that you'll be able to get in the 4th and 5th rounds that are really intriguing. T. Higgins, you'd miss him, certainly, and T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are extremely close, and you want to keep the guys together, and Burrow and all of them get along. But it hurts your team when you're paying him a bunch of money that could be going elsewhere. You know, I'm reading a rumor on Twitter. Justin Jefferson to the Chiefs. That's never going to happen. I love Justin Jefferson. I think he's the best receiver in the NFL. But I don't see the Chiefs spending that amount of money and killing that much of their salary cap to bring him in. I think he'll end up back in Minnesota in all likelihood. But if he does hit free agency, he's going to break the bank. But the Chiefs traded away Tyreek Hill, and in 3 seasons, they've won 2 Super Bowls. He's been great. 1,800 yards receiving this year, led the NFL. But the Dolphins haven't won a playoff game. The Dolphins have been interesting regular season, and then you flame out. T. Higgins is good. Tyler Boyd, a solid number 3 receiver. Justin Jefferson's a stud. Best in the game. But I look at those type of contracts and I go, I'm happy they got the money. But I don't know if the team Justin Jefferson goes to will be all that competitive. How good are they going to be? If he goes back to Minnesota, who's going to be his quarterback? The fact that Kirk Cousins has not re-signed with the Minnesota Vikings is alarming to me. He's going to be an outright free agent in a couple weeks. He only knows really Minnesota since leaving Washington. He's re-upped with Minnesota. He's gone through, and I get it. He just went through an Achilles injury, and he's not a young man, and you haven't had that much success with him. But also you look around and go, is Penix going to be better than Kirk D. Cousins this year? No. Is Bo Nix going to be better than him this year? Is J.J. McCarthy going to be better? In my opinion, no. So they have to make decisions. Are you going to lose your starting quarterback for the last 6 years and the best wide receiver on your team in one offseason? Because that's a disaster. The fan base is going to be pissed. People are not going to be happy going to watch games because they're going to be going, who are we watching? Where's Justin Jefferson? Where's our great players? Other decisions have been made. The running back market, always a topic of conversation in NFL circles. Running backs are frustrated. They're not getting the pay that they feel they deserve. They want an augment in pay. They want more respect around the league. And yet, announced yesterday by multiple teams, Tony Pollard with the Cowboys, they're not going to franchise tag him. But they want to re-sign him. They want to throw that in. Josh Jacobs will not be franchise tagged for the second straight year in Vegas. Saquon Barkley will not be franchise tagged with the Giants. Or Austin Eckler with the Chargers. But they'd all like to bring these guys back. Right. We're seeing you can pick a running back like Pacheco in the 7th round, and he can win you 2 Super Bowls by helping a good team. Kyren Williams, Rams, great year. 3rd round running back out of Notre Dame. He's making no money. Looking at the Philadelphia Eagles, they had about 7 running backs. They were paying them a total of $9 million this year. Tony Pollard was on the franchise tag, and they had Rocco Dowdle behind him. Cowboys, another example. The opposite side of the Super Bowl, San Francisco is the opposite. They're spending big money on Christian McCaffrey. I think he's worth it because he's healthy all the time, and he is the best running back in football. But as you get older in age, injuries start to come on, your production slips. Teams are not going to keep you just because you're a nice guy or just because you've been on the team a long time. But I think Tony Pollard, likely not going back to the Cowboys, if I had to guess. Josh Jacobs, likely not going back to Vegas. Saquon, I think it's a 0% chance he returns to the Giants. And we know Derrick Henry is not returning to Tennessee. They've already talked about it. Tennessee's moving in a new direction. Derrick Henry maybe ends up with the Cowboys or Baltimore. But they're not even being franchise tagged anymore. Teams are like, we'll find somebody in the draft or we'll sign somebody cheaper in free agency. I still think running backs are important. I still think you need them to be successful. Not having a running attack means you're a one-dimensional team and only so many teams can really get away with it. And if you don't have an elite quarterback with an elite system and elite coaching, you won't get away with it. But the Cowboys, they need a running attack. Dak Prescott cannot do it all in Dallas. Saquon's still a huge weapon wherever he goes. Derrick Henry, yes, he's had a lot of mileage on those tires, but he's always healthy, running hard, making things happen. I'd sign him on a short-term deal. But I don't think any of these running backs, as good as they might be or as good as they once were, I don't expect any of them to make big money. And I expect the same frustration about running backs last spring to continue. Because until there's something major done, unless there's something done in the collective bargaining agreement or a provision that allows running backs to become free agents after 2 seasons, which I pitched last spring, it's going to be the same. Teams are going to go, wow, I can have this guy for under $1 million this year. And yeah, the Atlantas and the Detroits might take Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson in the first round. And both were great draft picks, by the way. But I'll go find a good piece. I'll go find my Kyron Williams. He'll run hard for me. We'll have success at the Rams on the youngest team in the NFL. He's a stud. Ronnie Rivers, another guy for the Rams that they took in the draft in like the 6th round. When you have a high salary cap and you got to find a way to chew through money, adding a big running, you can't. So you need to make sure that you hit on running backs. The Saints don't want to be paying Alvin Kamara, but they have to because of his contract. The production, his behavior, everything that goes with him, not worth it, but they're stuck with it. So you go, okay, well, this is what we have to do. This sucks. I wish we didn't have to. Christian McCaffrey is great. And when you have a running back that's healthy, it's well worth it. And honestly, Carolina signed him to the deal. Carolina's getting no rewards for signing him because they traded him to San Francisco, and he's been a superstar ever since. He was Offensive Player of the Year this past season. But while you might say, well, the running back market isn't huge coming out of college, which it isn't, to be fair. But at the same time, there will be running backs that get taken. Blake Corum had a hell of a career at Michigan. Trey Benson at Florida State. Jonathan Brooks at Texas. Good back. Audric Estime at Notre Dame. Physical guy. Will Shipley. Interesting player at Clemson. Bucky Irving. Braylon Allen. Frank Gore Jr. at Southern Miss. There are tailbacks. These players will end up on teams. They're not going to be unemployed. They still serve a purpose. But this is not the offseason where the NFL GMs go, oh, we have to pay the running back to make them feel better, to keep things calm. No. I don't expect that to happen because nothing's changed. And if you got away with it last offseason besides Saquon and a few running backs being upset, why would it change now when you face no repercussions? Likely won't. Tampa Bay Bucks have some big decisions to make on Baker Mayfield, their quarterback, Mike Evans, the best receiver you could argue in franchise history. 10 straight 1,000-yard seasons, which is crazy. So, today they decided to cut Shaq Barrett. Shaq Barrett's a multiple-time Super Bowl champion. Won a Super Bowl with Denver as a young pup. Went to the Bucks free agency. Played there for a long time. Won a Super Bowl with Brady. He was owed $15 million in mid-March. They decide to cut him. They don't have to pay him now, and it helps their salary cap as they try to put a team together. Sure, that wasn't an easy decision. Longtime player, good player, a veteran. But again, getting older, numbers going down. There's certain veterans you keep on that team. Levante David still is a great player, the leader of that team. They had Ryan Jensen at center, but he retired. You want to keep some of these guys that were there. Been there, done that with Tom Brady, and won that Super Bowl and turned around Tampa from being a laughingstock of a franchise and a team that was in the NFC divisional round this past year and had a pretty damn good season. But Shaq Barrett now is on the open market. I'm sure he'll have some people looking at him. But Tampa's an interesting team because you have a quarterback and wide receiver. And now with T. Higgins off the board, Mike Evans will be coveted. Mike Evans is a big game receiver. He always produces, healthy, a winner. He can do it all. And I think he wants to stay, and I think they want him back in Tampa. And I believe they want Baker Mayfield back as well because, again, they have no reason not to want him back. Model citizen, played extremely well. Made a Pro Bowl this year. Again, win a playoff game, go to the divisional round. He had better numbers this season than Tom Brady did his last year. Win your division, all that stuff he accomplished this year. Looked like the old shake and bake. But a tough cut, but I think it's a one that had to happen for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Some other news here as we're chatting. The Vikings named Josh McCown as their quarterback coach. He was the quarterback's coach with the Carolina Panthers last year. They fired their whole regime. Frank Reich and his staff were gone. Josh McCown was part of that. He now moves to Minnesota. He will be coaching with Kevin O'Connell, who was a backup quarterback his whole career, just like Josh McCown. But Josh McCown was coaching some high school football, trying to get into the NFL in the coaching ranks. Takes a quarterback job, and as we're saying, we don't know who the quarterback's going to be. Will it be Kirk Cousins? Will it be a younger guy? Do they want to trade up, try to find somebody? Can the Vikings move into the top 3 and find a quarterback that they view as their future? All decisions that will have to be made here relatively soon with Josh McCown hired in Minnesota. And here's Jeremy Fowler of the Mothership. Chiefs have informed L'Jarius Sneed they are prepared to use the franchise tag and are open to consummate a trade off of it if no long-term deal is reached per source. Sneed is agreeable to the scenario, giving him a chance to talk with other teams while KC remains in play. I love L'Jarius Sneed. I think the Chiefs' defense was so huge. Sneed and McDuffie on both corners were a huge part of why they won the Super Bowl. The coverage, the blitz schemes, I think both players are phenomenal. I would want to keep L'Jarius Sneed. I think he's going to be looking for a lot of money, which is problematic for a team like Kansas City because I think they're so smart in the way they spend. They don't throw the bag at people. Last offseason, they let Orlando Brown Jr. walk. You trade Tyreek Hill because he wants too much money. And you end up getting Trent McDuffie in that deal. They will lose players if teams are willing to go over the top to get them. And L'Jarius Sneed should be coveted because he's a great player. And if L'Jarius Sneed wants to get the bag, it likely won't be in Kansas City because if I'm the Kansas City Chiefs, I'd rather have Chris Jones than L'Jarius Sneed, but it's close. But Chris Jones just has such an impact. I still think he has 2 to 3 good years left in him where they will be able to compete for Super Bowls as they go for the three-peat. But you have Snead, a free agent. You have Chris Jones, a free agent. We find the list for you here because every time you win, you lose people. Let's see. ChiefsKingdom.com. Chris Jones, Mecole Hardman, Mike Edwards, the safety, Drew Tranquill, who played well, Donovan Smith, the left tackle. It's an interesting loss. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Tommy Townsend, the punter, who will likely be leaving because they brought in Matt Araiza, who was out of the league for over a year, but got his court case settled, so he's good. Nick Allegretti, the guard. You got Blaine Gabbert, the backup quarterback. Jerick McKinnon, Derek Anati, Richie James, Blake Bell, Mike Danis. They have some important pieces that they make decisions on, but Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed are the two names that come to the top of the board. They are difference makers. They're a part of Steve Spagnuolo's defense. And that's why I'm saying I don't think Kansas City's going to be spending a whole lot of money on wide receivers. They're not getting Justin Jefferson. They're not doing that. Because they want to keep that side of the ball strong. They want these guys around. So, interesting stuff. And nothing's happened yet, but the rumor mill is swirling. I think that there will be stuff soon enough. Again, the combine, everybody being together, chatting, trying to consummate deals. So nothing yet, but we'll be on it. Want to talk to you guys all about it because it's just a lot happening in the world of football, as there always is. There's never a downtime in football, really. And late February, there's still stuff to talk about. Just seeing as we speak, Shohei Ohtani is making his spring training debut for the Los Angeles Dodgers today. First at bat, hits a 2-run home run. As you all know, he won't be pitching this year after having not Tommy John, but was Tommy John surgery. But he'll be the DH. He will be there front and center. He'll be the poster boy for the league. He'll be playing DH in Korea when they go there in less than a month to open up the season. Seeing him in that Dodger uniform, it's big news. Heard an interview recently with people from LA. And I think it might have been Keyshawn Johnson, who is Mr. LA. He's lived in LA for a long time. Loves it. And he was saying, Shohei Ohtani is the biggest celebrity when it comes to an athlete in Los Angeles. Ohtani jerseys everywhere. You see him, people are bombarding him. He's an international superstar. He was big in Anaheim. But you're on the biggest brand in the sport, in the hot market, wearing those expectations. You're the FanDuel favorite to win the World Series. It just makes it that much bigger, that much more compelling because he's on a team that actually has a chance. But he hits a big 2-run homer today. Dodgers has spent over $1 billion this offseason on players to improve their team. Will it work? Who knows? But this Ohtani story is fascinating to me. How big he is. The aura that he walks around with. The stories of the offseason. Where is he going to go? He's on the Dodgers. It's kind of like seeing Mike. You see Mike Trout in Anaheim. And he'll be going through spring training. There's no buzz. There'll be no buzz for Mike Trout and the Angels when the season starts because nobody cares anymore. Because you had Ohtani before, so there's intrigue there. There's not. Dodgers open against the Padres in Korea. But there's still intrigue because there's Ohtani. At least to me. There's something to it. March 20th. Seoul, Korea. Dodgers, Padres, 7 a.m. first pitch. But there'll be interest. You move up a week later and go to March 28th and go, okay, who do the Dodgers have in their first, quote-unquote, first series? They have the Cardinals at home. Cardinals. Well, you got Nolan Arenado, you have Paul Goldschmidt. That's an interesting series. Cardinals are one of the most popular teams in all of baseball. There's not many people outside of Cubs fans who hate St. Louis. Good people. They love their team. They're drinking Anheuser-Busch, which is okay again, and everything's great. Look at the Angels. Who do they got? I don't even know. Probably I'm guessing it's going to be a series that nobody cares about. They're in Baltimore. You might think that's an interesting series. Okay, they're in Baltimore. Baltimore had a really good season, won the American League East. Okay. Well, it's not that compelling when you think about it, because who's watching the Orioles on opening day? When the first pitch is at the same time as the Dodgers game and they're playing the Cardinals, what game is going to be on ESPN, I wonder? Why would the Dodgers start on at 4 p.m. Eastern on a Thursday? It's because they need to be in that window. Give me Ohtani. Give me Mookie Betts. Give me Freddie Freeman. Throw in the Japanese pitcher and you got superstar galore. Maybe Walker Buehler's coming back from TJ. Can he make the start that day? I don't know. But there's firepower there. There's intrigue. Mike Trout is a sad story. He's begging the organization to spend money. There's still guys available in free agency. We should go out and get them last week. They're not going to do that, Mike. They're quietly trying to sell the team. They let Ohtani walk. They don't bring anybody on. They have to sit there every day and see Anthony Rendon's face, and they hate it because they gave him a bunch of money after he won a World Series in Washington, and ever since then he's hit 28 home runs in 4 seasons. He's never healthy, and he's saying, I don't really like baseball. It's just what I do for a living. Yada. It's a priority because I'm here, but it's not really a priority. My faith is more of a priority than baseball. You know, this is just a side thought here. Saying I'm not religious is an understatement. I respect people that have the religious beliefs. I think certain religions are more profound. They require a hell of a lot more dedication, Muslim, than others. But when somebody says, my family and my faith take priority over my job, I understand the family aspect. The Blue Jays relief pitcher Eric Swanson, horrible story today. His 4-year-old child was hit by a vehicle, I believe, had to get in a bird and had to be airlifted to a hospital. Sounds like he's going to be okay, which thankfully for him, he will be. Swanson's taking time away from baseball. I understand that completely. It's your child. That is the priority. That's your baby. Get it. But when somebody says my faith, I don't know what. Are you practicing 24 hours a day? I mean, I know some good religious people. If they care, they might pretend to read the Bible and know it backwards and forwards, but they're not doing it 24. You got to go to your job and you have to earn your money and, you know, perform so that you can keep practicing your faith. Just the two seem to go hand in hand. And I would think Jesus would want you to work. This is, again, I don't know. I've read the Bible, unlike some, but you would think Jesus would want you to work because he was a hard worker. And, God would value that. But Anthony Rendon, faith and family are more important than their, okay, that's fine. I get it, Anthony. Maybe I don't get your point of view on that. And we'll differ about that forever, but I just think you can do both. You can practice the faith and then work to give, your family the money that they need to live and have a better life, but I don't know. Maybe I'm out of line. I don't think so, but I don't know. Good for Anthony Rendon. Good for him. Good for him. Other baseball news. I had to talk about this today. I wasn't planning on talking about this today, but it came up, and I'm like, okay. Alek Manoah started a game today for the Blue Jays, spring training. Looks to be in pretty damn good shape. Worked hard after a horrible 2023-2024. He's back hoping for new results. First spring training start, 1 2/3 innings. I will say that was better than his first start last year, regular season start, which went 2/3 of an inning. Didn't even get out of an inning. 3 hits, 4 earned, 1 walk, and hit 3 people. Yeah, that's not good. It's only spring training. You have a month to go. I know that's what I'm hearing. March 28th, opening day. The month tomorrow, baseball starts. Because, technically less than that because there's 2 games in Korea. But a month till every team is playing in Major League Baseball. The most compelling thing for the Blue Jays this year. Yes, there's the race. And yes, it's can Vladdy become a superstar again? Bo Bichette, can he have the same season? And Springer, year 4 of 7. And who's going to play third base and all these different things. To me, most interesting storyline is Alek Manoah and what he's going to look like. Can you pitch? Are you a big leaguer anymore? Or is your psyche so warped that you are done? You look like an ace for years to come, and then it was gone in an instant. You do not want to be Ricky Romero, but he could be the way it's going. It's 1 start, but all I have to go on is 1 start. And I saw 1 start last year, and it was dreadful, and the whole season was. They'll continue to track this. They'll be selling some positivity, Shapiro and Atkins, down at spring training. But the results are the results. And then they didn't spend as much money as they normally do in an offseason. They still have great pitching if the pitching are all wired correctly. But a tough start for the baseball season for Alek Manoah. No doubt about that. But spring training games are ongoing. I'm not a huge watcher of spring training games. I'll see the statistics, and when baseball starts, I'll watch a ton of baseball. We'll talk about it. Because I watched more baseball last year than I probably did in the last 3 years combined. Because the product is so much better. It's not even a discussion. If you think baseball was better before last year, I think you should have your head checked. Because I like having 4 hours just like anybody else, but I don't like 4 hours of 2-1 baseball and a guy grabbing his dick 85 times between pitches. You don't have that anymore. It's a better product. I'm happy about that. Spring training, there's one really sport I watch a whole lot of pre-tournament or pre-season stuff, and that's football. Baseball, pass. Basketball, pass. Hockey, pass. Korea games, we'll talk about the storylines going, and as we get closer to the start of the season, we'll talk about each division. Talk about the storylines going in. Which team should be good? Is the signings? Where do these Boris clients end up going? Do they take lesser deals like Cody Bellinger did on Saturday night? Yes. When that will happen, we don't know. Other stuff, Brandon Crawford. You might remember him, longtime shortstop of the San Francisco Giants, played there 13 years, won 3 World Series, one of the franchise's all-time greats, no doubt about it. He's now a member of the St. Louis Cardinals. Couldn't get a deal. Looking around, San Francisco did not land any big fish this offseason. And they let him walk, and I think they're kind of moving in a new direction after they couldn't get Correa and they couldn't get Judge. Now they're going, okay. This offseason, they picked up Sonny Gray from Minnesota, picked up Kyle Gibson from Baltimore, Lance Lynn from the Dodgers, Matt Carpenter comes over. Still have Goldie, still have Arenado. You add another veteran in Brandon Crawford to that mix. Wilson Contreras on that contract that nobody really likes, but he's still a member of the Cardinals. A team that missed the playoffs last year added to their team, hoping that they can still turn this around. I mentioned Sunday, that it's interesting because the Cardinals and the Cubs are very similar, in my opinion, where two teams that aren't that good are trying to remain in the race. Cubs have a bunch of guys you're hoping that can still play. Hoping that Bellinger can be just as good as he was last year and he'll still be motivated to be that good. Seiya Suzuki, fun players, Swanson, Christopher Morel, Hendricks, Happ. We're looking around at the NL Central. Brewers lose their manager, lost some players. I think looking to move in a different direction. Still have Christian Yelich. You traded away Corbin Burns, Willie Adames, Hoskins, but you're not the same team. You're not as good as you were. The Pirates have been awful for a long time. They will be awful again this year. Cincinnati's the X factor. Cincinnati has Ellie De La Cruz, young player. Jonathan India, a guy like you bring over Frankie Montas, who was a no-show for the Yankees. Matt McClain, fun player. Nick Martinez, good reliever. Hunter Green, fun pitcher. They have a young group. You moved off old heads like Joey Votto, who his career might be over. He remains unsigned. But really, the NL Central, it's Cardinals, Cubs, and Reds. And I think it's going to be a race the whole year because I don't think any of those three teams are particularly great. They're okay. But that's it. They're all just okay. Also, Manuel Margot, former Tampa Bay Rays outfielder, got traded to the Dodgers this offseason. He was then traded to the Minnesota Twins. Dodgers wanted to open up a roster spot. They bring back Kike Hernandez, who's been on their team 2 separate times. Boston in between got traded last year at the deadline back to the Dodgers. He will be back with the Dodgers this season. Manuel Margot goes from Los Angeles to Minnesota. And honestly, it'd be nice to be on the Dodgers for Margot. But with that being said, you go to a team in Minnesota that was a playoff team last year, that won their first playoff game in close to 20 years, all kinds of success, winning ways. You still have Carlos Correa. You lose Sonny Gray, which hurts. But you're going to a team that I believe wants to at least be competitive and wants to try. Royce Lewis, Correa, you still have Byron Buxton in the outfield, who is incredibly durable and can do a lot of different things defensively. Max Kepler, Pablo Lopez, Austin Martin, a Blue Jays pick who might get in this year. You bring over Carlos Santana. Santana's played for so many different teams. But you look, Pablo Lopez, Joe Ryan, Chris Paddock is good. I like their staff. It's not as good as it was, again, with Sonny Gray leaving the team for the St. Louis Cardinals. And I don't think Minnesota will be a team to sign Blake Snell or Jordan Montgomery, but they could be. If they wanted to spend the money, if that ownership group wanted to open up the checkbook, they could. But 2 off seasons ago, signing Correa, that's their signing. Small market team that's going to try to win in the margins. Try to win in prospects. They're not going to improve their team anymore. Adding Margot is a nice piece. He is a good player. He can play center. He can play right field. He can do a lot of different things. But there's options for these teams. But baseball is right around the corner. If you're into spring training, it's on. Again, not for me. Probably not going to be watching games, not going to be talking about what's happening. But if there's headlines, we will talk about them. 100%. Because baseball's upon us and there's still a lot to be figured out before the start of the season. And a lot of it has to do with Scott Boras, which exactly the way Scott likes it. Let's pivot to hockey. We got a lot of games on tap tonight in the NHL. But before we get to those games, Sunday afternoon, Nikita Kucherov became the first player this year to get to 100 points, which is impressive. He played 2 games over the weekend, 3 points Saturday, 4 on Sunday. He's just a weapon. He seems to find a way to come up with every goal that's scored for the Tampa Bay Lightning. He's involved. Kucherov has the most points in the NHL. He has the most primary points in the NHL. He has the most power play points in the NHL. And he's kind of single-handedly pulling a team to playoff contention that the team just isn't that good. A shell of what they used to be. No Sergachev. A wounded Chernak. And you're looking at Tampa going, can they make it? Will they make the playoffs because they're dealing with bad teams like Washington who remain in the mix and teams like Pittsburgh, but I'd have no faith in, and just teams that are going to fall out of it. But Kucherov's been the engine of that team. He's been the best player of that team, and he's been one of the best players in the NHL since he arrived. And yet, the mainstream media just doesn't seem to like Nikita Kucherov. And I have a few ideas as to why. Number one, Kucherov doesn't give a shit during certain times. Does he give a shit about the All-Star game? No. Does he give a shit about stupid little events? No. He cares when the puck drops and he's trying to win. He's a competitive son of a bitch and he can be mean and he just does it, right? And McKinnon's had a great season. Matthews, obviously, has had a great season. Connor McDavid quietly is climbing into a great season. No goals in his past 10 games, but he's got 23 assists in those 10 games. Really the reverse Matthews over the last stretch for CM97. But McDavid does not have as many points as Kucherov. He doesn't have as many primary points as Kucherov. Matthews, great season, 50 goals. Doesn't have as many points, doesn't have any primary points. K's got more goals, one thing. I just laid out what Kucherov's accomplished. Matthews on a better team. So if that's the thing, he's on a better team. Well, he should be. Tampa has won 2 cups, got to 3 finals, while Matthews was, watching UFC in May. I'm not saying Matthews should be out of the race, but what I find completely alarming, if you go on FanDuel, which is my book, it's where I look at the lines. I don't look at any others unless they offer me a deal, and then I will. But right now I use FanDuel. Austin Matthews is the front runner for the Hart Trophy at plus 200. Okay. I don't really get it. And McKinnon is above Kucherov as well. Kucherov beat McKinnon head-to-head a couple weeks ago. Again, more points, more primary points, more power play points. What am I not getting here? Here's Sunday. 4 points plus 4, 21 minutes. Sunday, 3 points plus 2, 22 minutes. So he's playing a ton, doing what he has to do, right? 38 goals, 64 assists. He's third in the league in goals, by the way. I mean, I just don't understand it. Is Kucherov the best player defensively? No. Matthews can turn the puck over. I know he gets a lot of credit for his defensive play. He turns the puck over quite a bit too. McKinnon, great defensive player? No, I would argue. I'm not saying Kucherov has to, but I find this very funny that he's third in line for this Hart Trophy, yet he leads in all these categories, and it's about points now. Believe me, I've been pounding the alarm forever that, the Norris Trophy should not be given to the guy with the most points. That's stupid, because that doesn't mean you had the best season. But they set that precedent, these idiots that do it, not me. These morons that vote in the media companies, they like to do it this way. I'm looking at this situation right now. I can only think they don't want to give it to the Russian player. American and a Canadian above him. You don't want to give it to Tampa Bay because it's in a warm weather market? I don't understand. McKinnon has had a better season than Matthews to this point. And Leaf fans, let me have it. You probably won't agree. I don't care. I'm right. You're wrong. McKinnon has been better. Matthews has been great. William Nylander has more points than Austin Matthews this year. JT Miller has more points. Panarin, ass-face Panarin, has more points. Pasternak, better. McDavid, 91, slow start, all that stuff, playing great. I find it, I go, third place? It's all close, but to me, Kucherov not being number one on the FanDuel odds today, I can't process it. It doesn't make sense to me. The wires are crossed. Something's wrong. Election fraud. The Democrats are rigging the election. I don't know what's happening. I don't know. But to me, there's something afoot there. Because he leads in all these categories. He's playing on the worst team of this bunch, and he's been better than the rest. He's in third place? Make that make sense for me. If you can, leave a note in the comments because I'd love to know. I'm not here to do an ad for Nikita Kucherov. What I am saying is when I see something stupid, I like to point it out because I like to make my audience and myself smarter. At least that's my goal going to this. But do I think this is smart? Do I think this makes any sense? I do not. Stupid. Leafs are playing Vegas tonight. Second time you're playing the team in less than a week. They'll also play Arizona Thursday, so you have 2 games against teams that you've played recently. Joe Wall, I mentioned, played a game for Laval on Friday, 37 or 36 saves. He gets recalled. So now the Leafs look like they're going to carry 3 goalies, which they should. Martin Jones will back up Samsonov tonight. It will not be Joseph Wall. But if you want a perfect start for him to come back, it's Thursday against Arizona. Arizona 0-10-1 in their last 11. Toronto crushed them last Wednesday in Arizona. Season's over, no expectations. They're just mailing it in at this point. That's the cupcake team to come back. Build some confidence, play against a bad team. You got Vegas tonight, Rangers Saturday. So put them in the middle of that sandwich. And really, from here out, it's a wrestling match to see who's going to be the goalie come game 1. Samsonov's been good, not great since coming back. Joseph Wall should be the guy, but I don't think it's an automatic he's the guy because, again, he was good for a stretch. But the guy gets injured a lot. He's inconsistent with his health. And that's problem when the guy's not available, he's not available. He's no good to you. Point blank. And I think the Maple Leafs need good goaltending to have a legitimate chance of winning a Stanley Cup or even being in the conversation. But Joe Wall, recalled, will not start this evening. But Vegas, I saw Jack Eichel was skating. They're out east until next Monday, I believe, so he'll have some time. Might not play in the road trip. Mark Stone will be out longer. Still, Vegas should have that flexibility to acquire a bigger term, a bigger contract if they deem fit. I also thought about the Maple Leafs today if you want to make a move for a guy like a Brock Nelson and for the Islanders. If you want to take a run at Gensel with the Penguins. You still could. You could make it work. I don't think trading away Easton Cowan is storming on Normandy by anything. I don't think it's Easton Cowan is a good prospect. Don't get me wrong. But will Easton Cowan be a good NHL player in 2 years? Probably not. He'll probably need more time. Matthew Knies played in college for 2 more years, and he's been good. He's not great as a rookie NHLer. He's been fine. But he's a game breaker? No. It's a serviceable piece. You have that game on tap tonight, which should be a good one. Sabres-Panthers, still sounds like Matthew Tkachuk's going to be out for that game. Forsling was back, but you will get that. Florida still ahead of Toronto in the standings, but with Boston losing again in the gimmick last night, Maple Leafs have 3 games in hand on the Bruins, and they trail them by 8 points. They only trail the Panthers with a game in hand by 6. So the race is on between these 3 teams. And looking at it, the Maple Leafs play the Panthers twice in April. Also play the Lightning twice in April. Play Boston twice next week. So you have some games coming up against team in the division that will mean a lot. But Florida's been playing great, just the same as Toronto has been. So both teams have been on a roll. Lightning Flyers this evening. Flyers, no Konechny. Ristolainen on IR. Jamie Drysdale out week to week after taking a huge hit on Sunday in the game against Pittsburgh. There's an open slot, and it's not the second wild card. Because I think Tampa's going to win games, and I think Tampa is going to make the playoffs, despite the fact that they have all their holes and everything. Kucherov will drag them there. Flyers are third in the Metro. 67 points. They'll play their 60th game of the season, ce soir. Capitals trail them by 4 points, 2 games in. Capitals keep winning. Dominated Ottawa last night. They're just finding ways to get points. Washington plays again this evening in Detroit on a back-to-back. Devils trail Flyers by 5 points. And the Devils are coming unscrewed at the hinges. I mean, that game against Tampa was awful. They're booing them, fire Lindy chants at the Prudential Center. So it's not fun, but the Flyers are a wounded bird. They're not getting goaltending. They have injuries. They weren't the most deep team to begin with. They may decide to sell off pieces at the trade deadline because it's the best thing for their team, which they should. So it opens up a metropolitan team. Washington, New Jersey, the Islanders, or the Penguins to make the playoffs. Penguins have 4 games in hand on the Flyers. Trail them by 7 points. Islanders, 1 game in hand, trail them by 5. Again, Devils, 1 game, 5. Capitals are in the mix. Capitals are playing good hockey. I don't think the Capitals are a good team. The Devils are the best team of this bunch, but they have so many issues. Devils are in San Jose tonight. They begin a Western road trip. This is where you turn around your season. At Sharks this evening, at Ducks Friday, at Kings Sunday afternoon. Look at the month of March. Host the Blues. Coyotes in there. Penguins. Sens. Islanders. Sabres. Yes, some teams are not very good. We'll see what they decide to do. Also makes it complicated that a team like Nashville, who have been red hot, are not losing. And it was reported today that they're not going to be trading away pieces if they're still in the playoff mix. UC Saros will not be traded. They are in the second wild card spot right now, 66 points, 4 up on St. Louis, 4 up on Minnesota, 5 up on the Flames and the Seattle Kraken. They just had an incredible stretch, beat the Ducks. They play the Senators tonight in Nashville. Again, they've been beating up on bad teams. But as I've been saying, they get Senators tonight at home, host the Wild, and Wild have to win that game. Host the Avs, host the Canadiens, host the Sabres, at Blue Jackets, at Wild, at Kraken, Sharks, Coyotes. You got some lemming teams coming up. The Predators are no worse, no better than these teams, but they've been beating them. Minnesota's been hot. They host Carolina tonight. So the races are still on. Decisions have to be made for these teams. Marc-Andre Fleury says he doesn't want to be traded. Wants to stick with Minnesota and help the team make the playoffs, which could be his last NHL season. So all these things are circulating. Then you have Patrick Kane, who's over a point per game in Detroit. Been great. And he's just playing hockey. Having fun. Gets the overtime winner on Chris Chelios night in his return to Chicago. Special moment. Standing applause for Patrick Kane. They host Washington. They're looking to make the playoffs for the first time in a very long time in Detroit. I think they're going to. I think they're better than the rest. They could look to add at the trade deadline, quite frankly. Looking at defensemen around the league, What teams want to spend. Radko Gudas has years left on his deal in Anaheim, but he's a good playoff defenseman. Lyubushkin has been good in the past. Intrigue for him. He's more rugged, kind of tough defenseman. Maple Leafs, Red Wings, I expect to be making these calls. Penguins are also in Vancouver tonight as Vancouver tries to get a winning streak going after the comeback against the Bruins on Saturday night. So, some fun stuff. Some good games tonight. Should be a fun night of hockey. No doubt about it. Finally, we got the NBA. I was watching Sunday night, watching Nuggets, Warriors. Klay Thompson goes off coming off the bench, which is a weird thing to see. But the Warriors play with them for 3 quarters, and then Jokic just goes, okay, we're going to win this game. We're better than the Warriors, and we're just going to win. He ends up with a triple-double, and he's incredible passes, and his connection with Aaron Gordon is through the roof, and they just play great basketball, right? And I go, okay, he's still the best player in the league. That team would still scare the hell out of me. They have the depth pieces when they want to. Christian Brown, Reggie Jackson can still play and shoot threes off the bench. They still have that team in Denver that won a championship. Minus Bruce Brown, who's playing for the Red Hot Raptors. But the Phoenix Suns, you look at them okay, maybe they can compete. Durant has to do too much. Nurkic has been way better than I ever thought he'd be. He was great on Sunday against the Lakers. But also you're saying, okay, the Suns beat the Lakers. The Lakers are no good. The Lakers are going nowhere this year. The Mavericks, I don't trust the Mavericks at all. Doncic, hit and miss kind of player. Takes bad shots, in my opinion, has the ball way too much. And I just go, I don't like their center depth. I don't know who's going to defend Jokic in a playoff series. Who's going to be? You're going to need Royce O'Neal and Grayson Allen to be making shots out of your mind if you're going to beat the Nuggets in a playoff series. I don't think that's going to happen. Lakers are not winning. I thought they'd be better this year. They're not going to be, and they're not. OKC. I like OKC. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander might win the MVP because he might end up on the best team in the Western Conference. He's putting up 30 a game. He's averaging 31.2 points per game, which is second to Luka, who's averaging a crazy 34. But you look at him, he's most steals in the NBA by a significant margin. Good in the assists. He's on a great team. He does a lot, but they're a young team. Chet Holmgren, rookie as a big, going up against Jokic. Josh Giddey. They're just a young group of guys that's really fun. Great basketball team. Fun to watch. They all play games because they're young. They already have 40 wins. They're tied for first in the West. Minnesota, I love Anthony Edwards. But you got Karl Anthony Towns, who sometimes just majors in stupid basketball. And I don't trust that. The Clippers could be threatening. But to me, the Western Conference right now, it runs through Denver. Denver's in third. They might not end up in first because I don't think they care. They get home court, great. If they don't, great. We'll beat you. They won 2 games in LA in the conference final. They won 2 games in Miami in the NBA finals. They can win games on the road. They know how to do it. That's not a problem for Jokic and them boys. And I think the West is tough. Some good teams, some great individual players, no doubt about it. But the Nuggets and the Celtics are still the 2 teams that you look at and go, that's the pace car. That's who you have to get by. That's the team that you're going to have to beat to get there. And the Celtics, I mean, they've been incredible. They're 45-12. Dominant all season long. 7.5 game lead in the Eastern Conference. They're wrapping it up. They're winning the East. It's over already. It's just now are the Bucks going to catch the Cavs? Can the Knicks make it interesting if they can get healthy quick enough? Could they get the second seed? Sixers are screwed. Sixers are done. They're playing the Celtics tonight. That should be a blowout. That game will be over by halftime. Heat are starting to catch fire, which is a good thing. They end up in a couple of brawls, and now they're playing good basketball. Playoff Jimmy checking in here. Pacers, don't trust them. Magic, too young. Bulls, Hawks, spare me. But it's Celtics and it's Nuggets. Last year, that was the projected final. Celtics best team in the East, despite the fact that the Bucks were the number 1 seed. Celtics best team, Nuggets best team in the West. The Nuggets held up their end of the bargain. The Celtics lost in Game 7 after being down 3-0 to the 8-seeded Miami Heat. Less pressure because the Nuggets have one. But I also have more faith in the Nuggets getting to the finals in a tougher conference, in my opinion, than the Celtics. Because the Celtics have majored in failure. The Celtics have majored in low expectations and not rising to the occasion. Should they get to the NBA Final? Should they probably win the NBA championship? Absolutely. And they're the odds-on favorite to do it right now. Tatum's been great. Brown's been very good. Derek White's been phenomenal. Porzingis has been better than anybody could have predicted. 12 losses in February is done in 3 days. Man, that's just incredible. Like I said, they're going to win tonight by 20 points plus against a Sixers team that just flat out stinks without Joel Embiid. But it's about the playoffs. It's about when you get there, can you get it done? Because you're going to have to choose. You're going to resign Derek White. You got to give Tatum $50 million on top of what Jaylen Brown's making. Can you do it? What's happening with Drew Holiday? Is he walking from the team? Decisions have to be made. NBA tonight. Warriors in Washington. Mavericks in Cleveland. Fun game. Pelicans at the Knicks. Sixers, Celtics. Spurs, T-Wolves. Pistons, Bulls. Rockets at OKC. Miami in Portland on a back-to-back. Should be a pretty fun night of sports. Appreciate you all for joining me today on this lovely Tuesday. We will be back talking to you very soon. Enjoy the nice weather while we have it. Talk to you later. I'm Noah Warren, and this is To The Point.